emotional, then the emotion will control us. And then we do something bad. Sometimes we even hurt people. And then we feel guilty. It ruins our peace. It ruins our equanimity. It ruins our balance. It destroys our happiness. But what's the point? Right? What is the point? For the Stoics, therefore, one must be able to always use reason. I always tell people, the heart leads, the mind rules. And sometimes, from time to time, somebody would say, well, no, Father, I have a crush on this person. Well, that's good. Why is that good? Well, having a crush on somebody is normal. Attraction is normal. Desire is normal. Passion is normal. They're all part of being human. Right? That is normal. Okay? But it's one thing to be attracted and to control the attraction. It's another thing to be attracted and to let the attraction control you. Now think about a man who's married to a woman whom he really, really loves. Does that mean that he's not going to be attracted to other women? No, of course not. He's a man. He's going to be looking at other women. He's going to admire them. But does that attraction mean that he's going to allow that to control him and be unfaithful to his wife? Of course not. Those are two different things. So while attraction is normal, allowing the attraction to control us, then us controlling the attraction is a recipe for unhappiness. And those of you who have experienced things like that will know that it is true. When we engage in things over which we lose control and allow them to control us, and slowly, our life spins out of control, we lose our happiness. Now, that's easier said than done. That's easier thought than done. But that's the thing with the Stoics. They were teachers. And they believed that we can teach ourselves gradually. We train ourselves. Muscles don't grow overnight. Cuts don't happen overnight. Bulk doesn't happen overnight. Learning things doesn't happen overnight. Learning a skill doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, effort, painstaking effort, and a lot of energy. But eventually, you learn it and you master it. It's the same thing with controlling things about ourselves. Okay? And I say that not just with a book knowledge. I know that for a fact. And many years ago, I developed asthma and diabetes, and I was worried. My grandparents died of asthma and diabetes complications, and I didn't want to go through what they went through. And so I promised myself I was going to do everything I can, to keep myself as healthy as possible. And so even if sometimes people make fun of me or don't understand why I have all my workout equipment wherever I go, that's what I do. As soon as I get to a place, I set up my own workout space, and people make fun of me, even friends sometimes, but they don't understand. The little amount that I spend on my gym equipment is nothing in comparison to the huge amount of money that I'm going to be spending on doctors and hospital bills and medication. It's nothing. This I have control over. Medical bills, illnesses, doctor's bills, hospital bills, I have no control over that. Meanwhile, my health, my fitness, my well-being, keeping asthma and diabetes at bay, I got control over that. But I have to do it every single day. I barely eat anything that has taste, and people make fun of me for that. But there's a reason I do that. Because that I can control, and I've kept myself healthy all this time. No medication. I consult with the doctors. They know what I'm going through. They agree with what I'm doing. I don't have maintenance meds. I'm 50 years old. I don't have maintenance medications. But again, it's something that you have to do every single day. And you have to be faithful to it. Okay? The laws of nature, according to the Stoics, we have to obey. Because if we don't, that leads to unhappiness. Okay? In a way, there's a certain determinism that's there that we find among the Stoics as well. As I said earlier, there's certain things about ourselves that we cannot change, mostly biological. Our genetic makeup, our DNA structure, our race, our sex, one either as X or Y or X or XX chromosomal structure, we can change those things. The key, therefore, is to find those things that we can change. Now, because not everything's fixed. Okay, so while we cannot change the world completely, we're also not powerless puppets. Okay, we're also not powerless puppets. And so while there's a certain kind of determinism in the Stoic way of thinking, there's also pretty good room for maneuvering. Okay, we're always free. We're free. There's a certain freedom to us. Okay, we can detach ourselves from things. We can freely detach ourselves from things. I freely detached myself from sugar especially. And it messes up your thinking. And it makes you sluggish. And salt, it makes you retain water in all the places that you don't want to retain water, like your gut. Right? So we can freely choose to say no to things. That is detachment. Okay? That is detachment. But it's called smart detachment. You don't just detach yourself from everything. Okay? You can't just detach yourself from everything, nor can you detach yourself immediately. Although some people, do things cold turkey. I'm going to quit smoking, and then they quit smoking the following day. Some people are able to do that. But some people are not. And they have to do it gradually. You want to develop a new skill? You got to do it gradually. You want to read the Bible more? You got to do it gradually. You can't say, today I'm going to read the Bible for an hour, and then the following day don't do anything. So say if I'm going to read the Bible for 10 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow, and 10 minutes the next couple of days, until it becomes a habit. Okay? It's the same thing with detaching ourselves from certain things. Let's say, we like to gossip. We can detach ourselves from that, but maybe not too quickly. Maybe we do it gradually. Okay? Slowly. Okay? But the fact is, we must recognize that there are certain things about us that we can, in fact, change. And those things we should change because we can't change them. Yeah? Why should we not too quickly change those things about ourselves that, wait a second, there's something noise here. Because that would be doing violence to ourselves. That's the thing too. If you want to change something about yourself, do it in such a way that you don't do violence to yourself. That's another thing that we learn from the Stoics. We must be gentle and kind with ourselves as well. Okay? If we want certain things to stick. Okay? Because otherwise, if we just force ourselves, those old habits will come back with a vengeance. And then it becomes even more difficult to get rid of them. Okay? So while we try to change things about ourselves, we don't coerce ourselves either. In the same way that we don't coerce other people. Okay? Because we have to respect the fact that they have their own freedom. They have their own autonomy. They are just as free as us. And if we are free to choose whom we want to lead us, so do they have freedom to do that. And we may not agree with them, and we feel sad about what they're doing, but at the end of the day, we respect them because there's nothing we can do. And if we insist on changing them, it's a recipe for unhappiness for us and maybe the loss of important relationships. So, now, let's move on to the final piece here, the relationship of Stoicism and Christianity. As I said earlier, St. Paul, you find influences of Stoic thought in the Bible itself. St. Paul, in his letter to the Philippians, says this. He says, I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in every situation, whether I am fed well or I go hungry, whether I live in plenty or I live in want. So St. Paul is saying, you know what? You can actually be happy when you're wealthy, and you can also be happy when you're poor. You can be happy when you have a lot of food. You can also be happy when you don't have a lot of food. So, happiness, for St. Paul, just like the Stoics, does not depend on external circumstances. Rather, it depends on how we see and interpret these external circumstances. You know, things might be falling apart all around us, and then you go, but how can you be happy? Things are so bad. You should already be miserable and angry and bitter, you know, and tired with life. There's the story of Job. If you guys remember Job from the Bible, very wealthy guy, and then suddenly he lost everything. And then his friend said to him, what is wrong with you? Why are you still being thankful to God? You lost your family, you lost your livelihood, and now you're covered in sores. What the heck is wrong with you? You should be cursing the Lord. You know, they said to Job, just curse the Lord so he will kill you and you will die and you will end your suffering. And what does Job say to his crazy friends? He says, you know, the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That is very stoic. It's also very faithful. It's also very Christian. And St. Paul says, you know, I can be happy when I have a lot of money. I can also be happy when I don't. Happiness does not depend on external factors. Happiness depends on what's inside me. And that is what's important. And then, of course, you have the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus says, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink. Don't worry about your body or what you will wear. Life is more than food. The body is more than clothes. He says the pagans, they run after these things. But your heavenly Father, Jesus says, He knows what you need. He knows what you need. So seek first His kingdom, and then all of these things will follow. And so don't worry about tomorrow, Jesus says, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You know, from time to time, a student would come to me back when I was still teaching, and they would tell me how worried they are about coming exams. And I know sometimes, you know, people ask me for prayers for exams, you know, that they're going to be having. And I always tell them, listen, is worrying going to help you? What do you mean, Father? If you worry, is that going to guarantee you a higher grade? Well, no, Father. If you worry, is that going to guarantee that your teacher is going to look kindly on your paper? Well, no, Father. If you worry, does that mean that you're going to suddenly remember everything you need to remember about the test? Well, no, Father. So what's the point of worrying then? Why are you worrying? Well, I don't know. I just like to worry. Ah, there you go. You know? There you go. Worry fills a void. But when you really think about it, worry does absolutely nothing. It doesn't do anything. So you studied, so you prepared, so you prayed, so you did your best. Then there's no need to worry. Otherwise, worry is just an unnecessary ingredient. And so the next question usually is, well, Father, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm always worried. You know? It's almost as if when we worry, we think that that worrying is actually going to help us get a good grade. It's almost as if we think that when we worry, we're going to do well in that interview. It's almost as if when we worry, we actually think that things are going to turn out well with a plan that we have. Fact is, that's not how it works. Worry only messes us up. You know? It only messes us up. It does squat. It does nothing. So what do you do when you worry? What do you do when you worry? Well, there's two things. If you're an unbeliever, I always tell people, when you start worrying, do something else. Okay? Drive worry out of your brain. Just kick it out of your head. Don't let it build a tent in your head. You know? Don't allow it to live rent-free in your brain. When worry starts to pop in, drive it away. It's not going to do anything. If you're a believer, the best way to get rid of worry is to pray. Say, Lord, I've done everything I can. and I leave everything in your hands, and I'm not going to worry. As Jesus says, your Father knows what you need even before you ask them. And that, my friends, is actually something that you find even among the Stoics. Don't worry. Life will take care of itself. Do your best. You have to work, but don't worry. But there's something else here, and this is where, excuse me, even if Christianity and Stoicism somehow are related, there's also a difference, and this is very important, okay? Especially for our purposes here. You know, the Greek word for happiness is an interesting word. The Greek word for happiness is eudaimonia. Huh? The word eudaimonia, which is what you will find in Aristotle and Plato and the rest of the Greeks, comes from two Greek words. Eu, and daimonion. So, eudaimonia is happiness. Eu is good. Eu. It's a Greek word that means good. Daimonion is a Greek word that means a demon. Yeah, but by demon, they don't mean here devils or anything like that. They just mean a spirit. You know, it can be a bad spirit, it can be a good spirit. So for the Greeks, happiness depended on the good brought to you by a daimonion, by a ministering spirit. Okay? Which means that happiness comes from outside. It doesn't come from inside you. It has to be given to you by a benevolent spirit, a daimonion who gives you eu, good. Okay? Interestingly enough, in the Bible, in the New Testament, the word eudaimonia is not the favored word for happiness. The Greek authors, the Greek New Testament, does not use the word eudaimonia. It uses makarios. Makarios is blessed. The translation is not happiness. It is blessed. You know, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, etc. And why is that? You know, happiness for the Greeks, who are of course not believers, depended on external circumstances that all happened to, I don't know, felicitously come together. So it's a happy circumstance. It's a happenstance. In fact, the word happy comes from the Old English root hap, H-A-P, which is also the root of the English word happen, or happening, or happenstance. And so for the Greeks, to be happy was an accident. It was a coincidence of facts. And so to be happy for them, and even for the Stoics, depended on good circumstances coming together. So, a truly happy man, says Aristotle, is one who has everything that is needed to be happy in life. And what are these? Now, mind you, Aristotle is a little bit of an elitist here. He says, a happy man, a truly happy man, is a man who is intelligent, who has money, who has good health, who has good looks, who has good friends, and who has a lot of good things in life. That is what a happy man is. Now, the first thing you ask is, well, then what happens to those who are not very smart? Are they not happy? What happens to those who are not good looking? Are they happy? What happens to those who don't have a lot of money? Are they happy? What happens to those who don't have a lot of good friends? Are they happy? And Aristotle's answer to that would be, well, they somehow will be, but not really. And that is where you see the limitation of even the Stoics and the Greeks' idea of happiness. For them, happiness depends on external circumstances, or even internal ones. But at the end of the day, there's certain things about them. They're things that really are apart from who you truly are. Right? They're circumstantial. They're coincidences. Happy coincidences. That is where Stoicism differs from Christianity. And that is where we, and even I, who love the Stoics, who love Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, that is where I myself part ways with them. Because there's something in Christianity, in what we Christians believe, that far transcends what the Stoics and what the ancient philosophers believed in. For them, true happiness depends, again, on the coming together of many good circumstances. Okay? For Christians, happiness comes from something else. And where exactly does that come from? I know if you've heard of that phrase. For us Christians, there is no coincidence. There is only providence. It's very important to remember. For us Christians, there is no coincidence. There is only providence. For us Christians, we believe that the ultimate point, the ultimate root of happiness is God Himself. Okay? And because of that, happiness for us, true happiness, blessedness, if you will, makarios and eudaimonia, is a choice. We choose to be happy. A Christian chooses, wills, and is free to choose to be happy. Happiness is a choice, So is bitterness. So is anger. So is resentment. Not for us Christians. Okay? For us Christians, we choose to be happy. The Stoic ideal, therefore, of that undisturbed life of peace, of calm, of tranquility, for us Christians, that's inserted into a larger story. And what is that larger story? We call it the good news. We call it the gospel. And what is that story? It's a story that says our lives are safe and secure, not because we abide by the rules of nature or the laws of nature in life, but because our lives are safe and secure in the hands of the author of the rules of nature and of life itself. Okay? The Stoics say our lives are safe and secure when we follow the laws of nature. Christianity says, no, our lives are safe and secure because they are in the hands of the author of life and nature itself. Our lives are in God's hands, and they're powerful hands. Nature is indifferent to us human beings. Nature doesn't care for us. It doesn't. When a volcano erupts, it will kill us. When a hurricane happens in the United States, it will kill people. When tsunamis happen, tidal waves happen, storms happen, it will kill people. Nature is indifferent. Our origin is indifferent if we just look at ourselves as coming from nature. Okay? But then Jesus says, no. Your origin is not nature. Your origin is something else. Your source, the one where you came from, is not just nature. We're not just highly evolved creatures, sophisticated in our evolution. No. Jesus says, no. Your origin is not just nature. Your source, your origin, your root, where you came from, is a father. Nature doesn't care for us. So if we say that our root and our origin is simply nature, that's a terrible way to go. Jesus says, no. Your origin, your root, where you came from, is not nature. It is a father. And he cares for you. And he knows what you need even before you tell him. That's something so beautiful. So what it does is that it continues what the Stoics do, but it raises that up. It raises that up to such a high level. Okay? Don't have a lot of time left, so let me just talk about these last two individuals. We're going to be talking about Teresa of Avila and Karol Wojtyła, or John Paul II. Teresa wrote this beautiful poem. I hope you guys can Google it as well, and use it whenever you feel troubled or finding yourself in a situation where you feel that things are starting to get dark and sometimes desperate. She wrote a poem called Nada te turbe, let nothing disturb you. And it's a really beautiful poem. She wrote it originally in Spanish, and the poem goes, let nothing disturb you, let nothing frighten you, All things are passing. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone suffices. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. All things are passing. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone suffices. They're really beautiful lines. Again, as I said, I hope you Google them, write them down, put them in your wallet. And whenever you start feeling like things are becoming a little too heavy, whip out the piece of paper and just read it. It will calm you down and make you realize, there's really nothing to worry about. And no person probably in contemporary history has shown the power of that kind of thinking and that kind of living than Karol Wojtyła, John Paul II. As I said, I met John Paul II several times. I'll tell you some amazing stories of some of my meetings with him at another time. But, John Paul II lost his mom at a very young age. Even before he finished his teenage years, she was gone. I think she died when he was 9 or 11. He was very young when she died. And his father he wasn't a very wealthy man, so he kind of had to scrimp to provide for the education of his older brother and young Carol. John Paul, he was a young boy, and they lived in a basement. They were very poor. His brother died. Also at a young age. His brother was a doctor, and he died while John Paul II was at university. And it was also while he was still studying that his father also passed away. By the time John Paul was in his early 20s, he was alone in this world. No mom, no dad, no sibling, all alone. Imagine the kind of life that young man lived. Lesser mortals would probably have just given up on life. They probably would have been angry. They probably would have said, why? I'm trying to become your priest, and look what you've done to me. You've taken away my mother, my father, my brother. Now I don't have anybody left. And that's certainly a tendency. We can have that tendency from time to time. There's nothing wrong with feeling like that either. Okay? And yet, what did he do? He chose to do something about his life. He chose to make something out of his life. Okay? And he did some pretty amazing things. And there was never, throughout any time in his life, any sign of bitterness in Karol Wojtyła, in John Paul II. In fact, he just loved people till his dying day. And he was working till his dying day. Having looked at all of these things, just very briefly now, what lessons can we take from all of this? Maybe lessons that can help us navigate these very difficult times. Okay? Especially a pandemic, a national situation that seems to be deteriorating so quickly, and that has deteriorated so quickly over the past couple of years. Number one, first, learn to distinguish those things that are within your control and those that are not. Immediately ask yourself that question. What elements of this experience that I have before me are things that I can control and things that I can't? Okay? The things that I can control, I must change them. I must do something about them because I have the responsibility to do that. But those things that really I cannot change, at the end of the day, there's nothing we can do about it. I know some people who have parents, for example, who absolutely refuse to get vaccinated. And they've done absolutely everything they can, to help their parents, to understand, to set things up for them. But at the end of the day, there's nothing they can do if their parents say no. You can't coerce them. They have their freedom. And so one has to learn to say, well, I've done absolutely everything I can. As long as you've done absolutely everything you can, and once you have, then you got to be able to surrender and say, I can't do anything about that. How about those things about ourselves? Maybe we have bad habits. Maybe we drink too much. Maybe we smoke too much. Maybe we engage in unsafe sexual relations too much. Maybe we engage in gossip too much. Those things we can control. We can control those things. And so if we don't do anything about those things which we can control, and try to control those things which we can't, it's a recipe for unhappiness. And again, the point is not just to survive, but to thrive. Second, never overthink things. And never overthink things. Stop listening to that audience in your head. Live life on the outside. The best way to be happy is to avoid self-absorption. From time to time, there'll be people coming to me saying, what am I going to do? I have this problem and that problem and that problem and that problem. So I tell them, have you ever tried to help other people? Well, why would I do that? I have a problem. Well, no. Your problem will eventually, you will find a solution to your problem. And that's what people don't understand. It's a paradox. You want to find a solution to your problem? You'll find it. But don't do it in the way that you think you'll be able to find it, which is focusing on yourself and yourself and yourself and yourself too much. The key is to focus on another human being and help them with their problem. And then before you know it, trust me, a solution will pop up in your head and in your heart. That's how life works. It's a secret the Stoics knew. And it's also a secret that Jesus taught us. The best way to be happy is to avoid self-absorption. Try to avoid going too much into yourself and analyzing yourself too much. Analysis leads to paralysis. Live life on the outside and do things, especially for others. Love lives outside itself. Love lives outside itself. Okay? But we also have to discern those things about which we have control. Again, we're not powerless puppets of life or existence. We do have a choice. Okay? Happiness is a choice. Hope is a choice. A positive mindset is a choice. Some people sometimes accuse me of having this, what they call it, toxic positivity. That's an interesting way of putting it. How can positivity be toxic? I asked. Well, because if you're too positive, you don't change things. That's a wrong understanding of positivity. To be positive simply means to have a hopeful and optimistic way of thinking and mindset that will allow you, in fact, to power your effort to change things. Positivity does not mean you're not going to be negative about those things that need to be changed. Positivity does not mean you're not going to pay attention to the ugly things you do. You will. And you will do something about it. But positivity is fuel. Okay? There's a difference between dirty fuel and clean fuel. The engine will run with both. But negativity is dirty fuel. You'll get things done, but it's very messy. Positivity is clean fuel. You'll get things done, and you'll get it done really in an amazing way. And I've seen it over and over and over again. So don't mistake positivity and optimism and hope, for a lack of desire to be critical or to look at the ugly things in life. No. Stare at the ugliness. Look at it. Okay? I go to slum areas. Before, it's not because I want to be there, but it's the reality of our life. My American classmates used to come and visit me all the time, and of course, I take them to the nice places, Palau, Boracay, places like that. But I would also tell them, listen, guys, I'm going to show you the real Philippines too. What does that mean? Well, we go to the slums. I show them things people don't like to see. We don't hide from those things, nor do we hide those things from us. No. We stare at what is ugly and what is negative. And then we choose to change it and be positive about the energy that we expend. That is what accomplishes things. Otherwise, if we just stare at the negative and not look at the positive, we will end up becoming despondent and angry and bitter and resentful. How are we going to change anything that way? Look at what is wrong. Look at what is bad. Look at what needs to be changed. But tell yourself, you know what? I can change this. I'm not going to change the whole world, but I can certainly change a world. That is real positivity, you know? So be hopeful, be positive, you know, things can change. Be optimistic. They're very powerful tools in remaining happy and well-adjusted and thriving even during very difficult times. Okay? The people who will survive the most difficult moments are the individuals who keep their eyes on light, not on darkness. Darkness is not going to do anything. Keep your gaze on the light. Stick to the plan. Work hard, stick to the plan, and you'll accomplish it. You know, there's that song, I'll end with this, from Prince of Egypt, and I love that song. It says, you know, you will when you believe. You will when you believe. The Stoics believed. You know, the Stoics believed that they can be happy here in this life. We Christians believe that we can be happy here in this life, but also in the next. And so in a way, what we believe in is larger than what the Stoics believed in. And there lies the biggest difference between us Christians and the Stoics. And I would like to use the words of Jesus in the Gospel to end this lecture for tonight. We will have another one at some point. Jesus says in the Gospel, he tells this to his disciples, and he's telling it to us as well. Take courage. I have overcome the world. Take courage. I have overcome the world. It's almost an hour and a half now. And, you know, while I would love to entertain questions from you guys, you can always send me questions through, through DM on Twitter. And I certainly hope that, you know, I was able to share with you, you know, some useful things for you guys, not just during the pandemic, but moving forward. You know, just remember, you know, positivity and hopefulness and optimism, you know, they're real. They're genuine fuel for allowing us to be happy, not just in this life, but in the next. And it's genuine fuel for us to actually change things. Negativity will not change things. Negativity will only allow us to see the problems. Negativity will not provide the solution. Okay? The solution is going to be found when we use positivity and optimism and hopefulness and trust and confidence in ourselves. That is what's going to solve the problem. We do need negativity and critique in order to see the problem. But that's just half the story. It's just half the story. Without the other half, we're not going to accomplish anything. I'd like to end our reflections tonight by praying once again the Serenity Prayer. Again, you know, you have it with you there. You can go on my Twitter page or on Facebook, and you know, you can just follow me quietly. We'll end with this, and we'll call it a night. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world, not as a habit, trusting that He will make all things right if I serve to His will, that I will be reasonably happy in this life and in the happy forever. And I bless all of you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you for joining, everybody. Have a great night. Tony, thanks for being there. Yep.
You survived. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. All right, good night, everybody.
But I'll just DM it to you.
Oh, okay. All right, take care, guys.
Thanks, Father Faraday. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Hi, Raj.